Hello, I'm Tom from the Cowper Newton Museum. I'm on the route of the museum's annual Cowper's Alcove History Walk. We're looking west from the top of Barnfield towards Weston Underwood. The stream at the foot of the hill forms the parish boundary, first described in AD 979 when it was passed from Ethelred to Elfair, who may have been a local thane or early form of local noble. Prior to this time, fields were small, worked by small scratch ploughs called ards, pulled by a single ox which just broke up the ground. From around the 10th century, huge open fields came into being, as these were best suited to the big new mould-board ploughs that had been developed that could effectively turn heavy soil. These ploughs needed 6 or 8 oxen to pull them, and they needed plenty of room and long runs. Shared capital was required for building and operating them, and collective management of the big fields. The farmers would be allocated strips of land spread across the great field, so it was logical for workers to live together in nucleated settlements. This is how most villages originated. You can still see some ridges and furrows and the banked headlands where the ploughs turned, such as on the path to Clifton Bridge or at Olney Hyde Farm. We are now about a mile north of Weston Underwood, between the village and Yardley Chase. The Chase was once part of a much larger forest that ran along the county boundary and incorporated Salsey Forest and Whittlewood Forest. On the Yardley Road, Olney Park was a more manicured hunting park with a lodge. It was established by Ralph, the 3rd Baron Bassett of Sapcote in Leicestershire, and it was a separate parish until 1931 and is now owned by the Duchy of Lancaster. We are next to the disused railway line that ran between Bedford and Northampton from 1872 until 1962, when it was axed by beaching. Parts of the Northampton end of the line stayed open longer, as Yardley Chase had become a munitions dump during the war, and on Google Earth you can still see the path of the branch lines running to concrete bunkers surrounded by banks and ditches. The ditches now form great habitats for local wildlife, and the area is a site of special scientific interest. William Cowper wrote an influential poem called The Yardley Oak, based on an old oak tree that stood next to the forest until the 1950s. The Cowper's Oak pub in Weston Underwood is named after this tree. This is Weston Underwood. We are in the Throckmorton's Weston Hall estate. The gateposts on the road with the pineapple knobs were gated and closed off the village from the grounds of the hall at night. The hall was set back behind these gateposts and ha-ha. The house was demolished in the 1820s, and the Bowyers, the Lords Denham, bought much of the estate in 1899. There are outbuildings still standing, such as the clock house on your right, which were stables and part of the chapel, and service outbuildings, which is now Laundry Cottage on your left. The Throckmortons are a fascinating Catholic family. They survived the Reformation and may have helped depose Thomas Cromwell. Bess Throckmorton married Walter Raleigh, much to Queen Elizabeth I's anger. Thomas was a Protestant and banker to Queen Elizabeth, and Throgmorton Street in London is named after him. There was a Throckmorton plot in 1583. In 1605, many of the gunpowder plotters had connections to the family by blood or marriage. Most Throckmortons paid recusancy fees for not attending Anglican churches, but still maintained their wealth by judicious marriages. When Cooper arrived in Weston Underwood in 1786, they were his friends and landlords. John Courtney Throckmorton did much to gain religious freedom, and after the Act of Toleration in 1829, Sir Robert Throckmorton became the first Catholic MP since the 16th century. This is the alcove, now known as Cooper's Alcove, since the poet used it for resting and composing his poetry and translating Homer. It's a Grecian-style temple on the estate of the Throckmorton family, who acquired it by marriage into the Olney family in 1444. From this point onwards, it was one of their two main seats, along with Coton Court in Warwickshire. Along the valley is a large walled kitchen garden whose walls were built around the 1740s. Between this and the alcove was an area called the Wilderness, a decorative wild area that still contains 6 scheduled ancient monuments, including 2 urns with epitaphs by Cooper to Neptune and the Fox, 2 of the Throckmorton dogs. There's also a Gothic temple and a lion and a monument to the Battle of Waterloo. A colonnade of lime trees linked the Wilderness with the alcove until they were cut down in the 1920s.